Hello, friends and artists in fifth grade. Mrs. Gordon here. Happy to see you to wrap up your last step of the Gustav Klimt Lena Iris Victor project. So last week we drew either a tree inspired by Mr. Gustav Klimt's Tree of Life, or we learned how to draw figures inspired by both Lena Iris Victor and Gustav Klimt. And today, you have learned a little bit about pattern. I have gone over and drawn some patterns that were inspired by both Miss Victor and Mr. Klimt. And a pattern is a principle of design, and it's just a repetition of one of the elements of art. It could be line or it could be shape, and those are what we're going to be focusing on. So I created this kind of like practice sheet for myself. And then today we're going to be adding pattern to your foreground, your midground, and your background, and also to your subject, to your tree. So you can see I've added some vertical lines behind my tree. I started off having them go all the way to the top, and then I didn't really want that look. I wanted it to look not like almost unfinished in a way around the edges, and so I just had some of the lines trail off, some of the vertical lines trail off. I went into my tree, and today I was actually using both two different thicknesses of markers. So if you have that available to you, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. And then I was just going in and adding some patterns inspired by Mr. Klimt and Miss Victor as I went up here. So repeating shapes or repeating lines. There were a lot of symbols in Mr. Gustav Klimt's Tree of Life. And one of the ones that I really like is the raven that he put in there, and that's kind of a sign of both life and death. And so if you wanted to add fruit to your tree, you could cut things out and glue them on. I have not done any color, but you are certainly welcome to do that. I think I am going to go ahead and add a bird to my tree, and maybe it'll be a raven or maybe something else. And I'm just going to go ahead and use a marker. And those of you who had me in second grade, you know about how to draw a bird. Body is an oval, and the tail is kind of a triangle. Head can be a circle, and I think I'll use my thin line there. So I've kind of done a bird shape. I can smooth it out. So, you could add a bird to your tree as symbolism. You could add different patterns. You'll see that I use different patterns, and I also added a pattern to my ground. So that's, you're just looking at adding patterns in different ways to both your subject, which is your tree in this case, your foreground and your midground, that's where the tree would be, and then the background. I am kind of wondering what it would look like to have some like checkerboard lines here, but I'll get into that in a little while. Okay, so here is my person, and I've gone ahead and I've added a checkerboard background just by repeating vertical and horizontal lines. I think I'm going to go in there and add squares in some of them. And what I noticed about both Lena Iris Victor and Mr. Gustav Klimt is that sometimes their patterns were very regular and they followed exactly how they were supposed to, and sometimes they kind of trailed off a little or changed. And that's what you get, those are the choices you get to make as an artist. If you want to break the rules or follow the rules. If you want to use rules at all. Those are the choices you get to make. So I noticed this pattern in Mr. Gustav Klimt's work, so it's kind of fun to use it. And sometimes he also puts dots in the middle of it, of his squares. So that makes a fun pattern. And then I've gone in and added kind of a wavy pattern for the hair. Gustav Klimt, his woman had more like solid hair, and you could certainly do it that way. It would, it would attract your attention, like this bird is all black. And then if I did the hair all black, that would be a really big piece. In fact, I might go ahead and add some other, like color in some more shapes black down at the bottom maybe, so that my eye isn't going straight to this bird every time. So now let's see, maybe I want to keep the floor, kind of the mid-ground here. She's probably in the foreground, white. Maybe I want to add something to it. I'm going to go ahead and do the patterns on her dress or her body first and kind of see where I go. And so I might just even start by adding some lines. Looks like she's got a shawl around her now. And this is going to give me some space where I can kind of decide where I want, what kind of patterns I want. And so maybe I'm going to repeat some horizontal lines here. I liked how Mr. Gustav Klimt, when he had those kinds of horizontal lines, sometimes he went in with zigzags and connected them, and it created a kind of an interesting pattern. So I could certainly do that. My points are connected here. So you could fill an area with a pattern, or you could add multiple patterns to it like I did in the tree. Maybe down here, I want to kind of have some checkerboard pattern, but I don't want to fill the whole thing with checkerboard, so I don't have to finish my lines. Maybe I add some ovals. Add some circles in the ovals and they start to look like eyes. Like an enchanted forest is on her dress. Look back at this one, I really liked this kind of wavy lines with triangles added into it. So maybe I'll add some of those. Still kind of really liking these eyes here. So I'm just going to keep going with that. I'm going to keep adding patterns. Like I said, maybe, trying this kind of wavy, just like letting my pen see where it wants to go. And maybe I do some other kind of line this way. I can't wait to see what kind of patterns you create. I think I'll add some of those triangles in here. Maybe I want them going different directions too. Okay, so like I said, I can't wait to see what kind of patterns and lines and shapes you repeat, what patterns you create. And just, let your mind go and just kind of see where it takes you. You don't have to copy anybody. You can just kind of relax. It's a little bit like a Zentangle, if you're familiar with that idea. Maybe I want these to curve around in there and become part of that. So just keep going. Make thoughtful decisions about where you want your patterns to be and where you don't want your patterns to be. This is still looking a little unfinished for me. This is looking pretty finished, but like I said, I might add some. Now watch this, how this changes it. Your eye goes right there because that's the darkest thing, but if I start to color some of these in, then your eye starts to move around a little bit. And maybe I do every other one of these guys. So then just by doing that, now my eye starts to go around. So you can do that. If you want to add color to yours, you absolutely can. You can keep it black and white if you're kind of digging the way that's going. But whatever you choose, I hope you enjoy repeating lines and shapes to make patterns on your pieces of art inspired by Mr. Gustav Klimt and Miss Lena Iris Viktor. Happy art making, friends.